have roped in international relations analyst Professor Christopher Isike, who's the director of the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Pretoria. Prof. Isike, season's greetings to you. Welcome. So what do you make of these developments? I mean, reports indicate that Foreign Affairs Minister Yusuf Tuga says that the strikes were indeed carried out with President Bola Tinubu's approval.
Well, yeah. Good afternoon and Merry Christmas to you too. Well, look, it means different things to different people. Basically, if the people who are criticizing this now for all kinds of reasons, including the sovereignty question, which falls in its face if the Nigerian government actually cooperated with the US to carry out this airstrike, reflects the fact that the Nigerian state has not been very serious in dealing with this issue for years now. For the last 15 years, they've been toying with this particular problem and have shown an inability to actually deal with it because of complicity of people in government, sometimes people in the military, who have shown to be in cahoots with the terrorists. So basically, terrorism is a global problem. It is one that requires cooperation, intelligence sharing between states that are affected and other states in the world that are interested in helping to fight the menace of terrorism. And this is what I think. That's how I think we should view this. Of course, we can raise questions about Mr. Trump's real interest in Nigeria, which go beyond the his commentary that he's fighting for Christians. We can look beyond those and look at the geostrategic and economic issues that are also at play. Geopolitical factors, especially when you look at the role of China in that part of Nigeria now in terms of critical minerals. All of those are factors, of course, but the fact that people have been killed indiscriminately in Nigeria, the state has not been able to, defend its citizens, whether they be Muslim or Christians. And by the way, on Christmas Day or a day before Christmas, a mosque was attacked in that part of the country, and so Muslims died. So if the issue is looked at from the perspective of people dying, citizens of Nigeria dying, it shouldn't matter whether it be Christians or whether it be Muslims, because many truths can exist at the same time. So we should look at it from the perspective of it's an international problem of terrorism. The Nigerian state is cooperating with a superpower to try and help them deal with the menace, as other countries that are affected normally do. And action needs to be taken at some point.
Professor, my worry is there's this secrecy around the actual numbers of those that were actually killed, because according to Trump's ex-post, he says these strikes were actually deadly. Why do you think we're not getting that intel? You call it also complicity by the officials within the Nigerian government. So what then could be the implications of that decision then, Prof, if indeed Nigeria did provide intelligence for the United States strike? This could potentially lead to potential internal conflict, even a potential coup, as we've seen in some other African states. Because remember, Bola Tinubu had strongly denied the notion by the US of active targeted attacks on Christians in Nigeria. Just a couple of months ago, you and I were having this conversation, conceding that they were actually working to eradicate the extremist operatives. So when did he change from his stance?
Well, I don't think he really changed. The fact that he argued that there's no Christian genocide in Nigeria, which is problematic in itself, does not mean that he is arguing that he doesn't need help with fighting terrorism in Nigeria. Okay, so you can say, well, look, the people that are dying in Nigeria as a result of the terrorist threat are not just Christians. Muslims are also dying. That's a different argument from saying, okay, look, we know that we have a problem with terrorism on our borders. We have within the country. We are not able to deal with it effectively. We would cooperate with you to try and solve this problem. And I think that is legitimate. It doesn't mean that he has actually changed that, there's a Christian genocide. He may not believe that, but he does know that Christians and Muslims are dying and that he needs help. If he engages in intelligence cooperation and sharing with the United States to specify and hit targets of the terrorists, it should not be seen otherwise. Let's not forget also that in the last week, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian military, has been bombarding a lot of these terrorist targets, and some of them started calling for negotiations. And the Minister of Defense said, "Well, the time for negotiation is over." So there is eye on them. They've been labeled as terrorists. Some people in those who make the case for them. And I dare those people who say that, well, this is an internal problem, let's solve it ourselves. If their families have been killed by these terrorists, they would not be saying the same, singing this tune. So people have been dying, and this has been happening for the last 15 years, both Christians and Muslims. And the question should be, what should we do to stop the killings? If it means cooperating with a foreign power, so long as we're in collaboration with them, I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah, there's no problem with collaborating, Professor, but he was against U.S. military operations being deployed to Nigeria at the first time that Trump had actually suggested he was going to, of course, deploy his military there. Prof, unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to leave it there. Susan's greetings to you once again. That is Professor Christopher Isike. He's the Director of Access at the University of Pretoria, weighing in on the United States strikes on Nigeria over claims that militant groups are actually targeting Christians.